Chapter 71. Is Chu Xiaoming sick? You are listening at novelfull.audio. O.org. Chu Xia felt strange when she received the phone call, but when she heard Su Yang's rather unfriendly tone, she dashed out of the lecture building and met him in the garden. She came in a girly outfit today that screamed of youth. She wore a rainbow-striped T-shirt, and the cutting at her shoulders revealed her shoulder and arms, making her look refreshing. Her fitting jeans complemented her slender legs, and together with her 3-inch heels, it made her look almost 180 centimeters tall. Su Yang actually wondered how big her closet was. If he remembered correctly, he never saw her in the same outfit before, and she always appeared in brand new clothes. Are all girls like that? Or is she one of kind? Su Yang spent his entire summer with 2 T-shirts and a pair of shorts plus a cropped pants for special occasions. On top of that, the 2 T-shirts were 2 years old and they still felt comfortable when he wore it. Even though his mother wanted to buy him new clothes, he always refused. It was not because of his family's financial status, but he really did not want the clothes. It's just a piece of cloth to cover your body, so anything will do. Chu Xia greeted Su Yang with a sweet smile. Good morning, Mr. Fan Club President. This girl really grinds my gears and hits me in my weak spot. She really should learn how to read the situation. Don't call me that. I didn't agree to it, he said. His tone grew heavy as he continued. Besides, did you even talk to me about the fan club? You didn't even get my permission and simply made me president. I didn't even know you were creating a fan group and I was blindly invited into it. Chu Xia looked at Su Yang with a surprised gaze. I talked to you about it before, but you never replied to me, so I took your silence as a yes. That's why I invited you to the group. You've been training us and led us to support Han Yi and even met her in person, which means you also like her as well. I really thought you'd be happy about the fan group. Did I? Did I say yes? Su Yang searched his memory but did not remember anything. He must have simply let it escape his mind when he tried to brush Chu Xia off. As for Chu Xia asking for his permission, he took his phone out and checked his chat history with her and realized that there had indeed been such a conversation. She had asked him about the fan group and spammed him a couple of times. Unfortunately, Su Yang's WeChat was always flooded with messages and he was busy checking the Silver Mission stage statistics yesterday morning, hence he missed out on her message. The atmosphere suddenly turned awkward. Chu Xia noticed the awkwardness on Su Yang's face, so she smiled and patted his shoulder. Okay, Mr. President, I'll apologize for doing this without your agreement. Don't be mad at me. The girl had an irresistible kindness, and when she took the initiative to apologize, the atmosphere eased. Su Yang cleared his throat and his embarrassment. Then, can I say no to being the president of the fan club? I think you suit the position more. Chu Xia spread her hands out helplessly. It's not my decision to make. The members actually suggested your name and more than half of them voted for you. I didn't even get 10 votes myself. She looked sad when she said that, but he did not spot any grievance on her face after that. He rolled his eyes at the girl and said seriously, I have a lot of things to do and I don't come from a decent family background. If I have the time to worship an idol, I might as well spend the time studying or working. I really don't have time for your fan club. Chu Xia said, then, why did you bring us to Ace Variety Show to support Han Yi? You even provided transport for all the students. Su Yang went silent. He could not simply say he did it for the money because it would only expose his deal with the intermediary company. By then, the students would probably view him as an evil merchant who exploited them for his own benefit. All his plans would be seriously affected. Chu Xia giggled when Su Yang kept quiet. She said, I know what's going on in your mind. You actually like her, don't you? Just admit it. Han Yi is so cute. She's lovable, and everyone likes her. Even I as a girl am infatuated with her. Su Yang wanted to argue, but she stopped him and said, "Besides, the fans and I didn't forbid you from working part-time, if you want to, that is. We aren't fanatic either. We still have our classes to attend and work to do as well. Based on what I know, there are almost 50 fans who are hardworking students that work part-time in our group. A lot of them are from different institutes as well, and many of them are talking about their part-time jobs and tasks from different institutes in the group." Su Yang's eyes gleamed. "Right, why didn't I think of this? The fan club can still have this kind of function. Interesting." He pondered the possibilities of the fan club. As a matter of fact, Junqing Intermediary had given his company a lot of tasks, but he did not have the manpower to complete them. If he could have another 50+ students and each of them work 2 days every week, he would be able to earn an extra 30 yuan per day, which would be 3,000 yuan a week and 12,000 a month. Chu Xia mentioned that there were students from other institutes doing part-time jobs as well, meaning that there was a steady flow of part-timers in a single spot. If he could use them to make his entry into other institutes, his plan of invading the universities of the entire city could progress smoothly. With that in mind, Su Yang smiled brightly. "Well, I guess I should contribute a bit as well. For the fans of Han Yi and Shanghai, I'll shoulder the responsibility as the fan club president and provide them with a place they can call home." Chu Xia was rather shocked. She had no idea what caused the change in Su Yang's attitude. He looked like he would die if he became president a moment ago, but now, he was ready to give his life to the fan club. Regardless, with Su Yang's fame and reputation, he would be the perfect ambassador and the fan club could attract more fans from other faculties. After all, if the president was a famous person who everyone knew, the fan club would gain their trust easily. On top of that, Su Yang might be able to bring the fans to meet their idol, Han Yi. That point alone could easily win the hearts of the fans and gather them under one roof. He did not know what was going on in Chu Xia's mind. He saw her happy expression and said, "But on one condition." Chu Xia looked at him pointedly. "During the campus singing competition or whenever I'm busy, I won't be on the front and you aren't allowed to use my picture to print posters." Chu Xia stuck her tongue out and said, "Okay." After they reached an understanding about the fan club, they walked side by side back to the lecture building. However, before they even reached the lecture hall, they noticed Chu Xiaoming squatting in a corner of the corridor. Her hand was grasping her chest and her brows were tightly furrowed. Her face that had a little baby fat was smeared with sweat. Su Yang and Chu Xia exchanged a look before they went up to her. "Miss Chu, are you okay?" Chu Xiaoming noticed their arrival and looked at them with her pale face. Her forehead was covered in sweat. She shook her head and said, "I'm fine. I'm just having a stomachache." Su Yang said, "Having a stomachache is a serious matter. I had a relative who suffered from constant stomachache, but he didn't take it seriously, so he died of stomach cramps." Chu Xia and Chu Xiaoming were rendered speechless. "Gosh, Su Yang, you are really great with your words." Chapter 72. I'll never be a vegetarian. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Yang was not joking. He was telling the truth. After that incident, his family was a little shaken and it was the first time he felt how vulnerable life was. Ever since that day, his family insisted on having 3 meals a day, so he developed a habit of having breakfast. Even when he was having a hard time in Shanghai, he ate breakfast every morning, which was considered rare for young people nowadays. Therefore, Su Yang took the initiative to ask in a slightly serious tone, "Ms. Chu, I'll take you to the hospital." Chu Xiaoming grasped the left side of her chest and shook her head. "I'm really fine. I still have a lecture to teach." Su Yang looked at the time. There was still half an hour before class. "Then, let us take you to the infirmary." "Yeah, Ms. Chu, you can't just stay like this," said Chu Xia, attempting to persuade her. Chu Xiaoming's round face looked hesitant before she ultimately compromised and accepted the suggestion. Su Yang saw that she was having a hard time standing up, so he said, "Ms. Chu, I'll carry you on my back." Chu Xiaoming's pale face slightly blushed as she said in an awkward tone, "It's not really appropriate. Just help me up." She wanted to stand, but before she could get on her feet, her stomach spasmed again. She gasped in pain and her round face crumpled. Su Yang saw the pain on her face. Without caring whether she agreed or not, he squatted down in front of her and showed her his back. "Get up, Ms. Chu. We will be in the infirmary in a second." Blushing, Chu Xiaoming was at a loss about what to do. She was reluctant to get on, but Chu Xia nudged her onto Su Yang's back anyway. Chu Xiaoming was not as heavy as Su Yang expected since she was only around 45 kilograms, so he had no problem carrying her around. With Chu Xiaoming on Su Yang's back and Chu Xia beside them, the lecturer and student trio walked to the infirmary under the other students' curious gazes. At first, Chu Xiaoming used her hands to prevent her chest from touching Su Yang's back, but as more and more curious gazes looked at her, she simply buried her face into his back like an ostrich. Meanwhile, Su Yang tried his best to not get distracted by focusing on his steps. They reached the infirmary soon after that, and with Chu Xia's help, Su Yang lay Chu Xiaoming on the sickbed before he went out to get the medical officer. After Su Yang went off, Chu Xia helped Chu Xiaoming up and said, "I saw his legs shaking just now. He must be tired, but he carried you all the way here and didn't even sit down to catch his breath." "Really?" Surprised, Chu Xiaoming's mouth was slightly open. "Yeah." For whatever reason, Chu Xiaoming felt a warm stream in her heart and it eased her pain for a moment. Soon enough, the female medical officer came. She did a quick check up on Chu Xiaoming and said, "Your stomach is cramping. Have you been having irregular meals lately? Or do you have a condition with your stomach?" Chu Xiaoming's round face looked awkward as she answered, "I've been on a diet lately, so I don't really eat rice." The medical officer glared at her. "Girls nowadays. None of you know how to love your body. Do you really think you can do anything while you are young? The illness and pain will catch up with you when you are older." She then poured a glass of warm water for Chu Xiaoming. "Have some warm water and take your breakfast. You will get better if you take your meals." As though a light bulb lit up above the medical officer's head, she added, "Right, try to consume porridge in the meantime. It's good for your stomach." "Doctor, what about medicine?" Chu Xia asked. The medical officer glanced at her. "There's no need for medicine. Take some warm water slowly and fill your stomach, and if your stomach hurts again, you don't have to come to me either." "Why not?" Su Yang asked. "She should be going to the hospital then," said the medical officer. She then took her stethoscope off and went out again. The three of them were left behind in the infirmary, dumbfounded on the spot. After having the ultimate cure in the form of some warm water, Chu Xiaoming's pain eased up and she felt a lot better. She looked at the time and said, "Let's get back to class now." Su Yang nodded and wanted to help her get off the bed, but Chu Xia stopped him. "Su Yang, sit down with Ms. Chu for a while. She's not good enough to teach. I'll get some porridge from the mini-mart downstairs and we can leave after she finishes it." Chu Xiaoming hastily said, No, I'll eat after class." Chu Xia shook her head. "I think it's better for you to have some porridge before class. Today's class is a combined class with other classes and it's almost 2 hours long. You won't make it until class ends." Right after her voice subsided, Chu Xia lifted her slender long legs and ran off. Chu Xiaoming tried to reach out to her, but her hand froze in the air when Chu Xia left. She put her hand down and looked defeated. She knew that she should have eaten something earlier. After Chu Xia left, Chu Xiaoming was left alone with Su Yang and the atmosphere quietened down all of a sudden. Maybe because Su Yang met Chu Xiaoming at her weakest moment, in his eyes, she did not have the image or the dignity of a lecturer. He looked at her pale face and asked, "Why are you on a diet?" Perhaps because she was alone with Su Yang, Chu Xiaoming reverted to her cowardly side and said meekly, "Because I'm fat." Right, what a straightforward answer. Su Yang recalled how light she felt when she was on his back and then sized her up. She's not fat at all. If a girl less than 50 kilograms is fat, then the whole country severely lacks thin people. He looked at Chu Xiaoming's pale face and decided to knock the unhealthy thought out of her mind. Okay then. Let me analyze it for you. Chu Xiaoming looked at Su Yang. Do you know why people go on diets? She dully shook her head. It's because they are ugly and will look better when they are slim. In order to look better, they must slim down. Here's the $1,000,000 question. Are you ugly? Chu Xiaoming shook her head without a second thought. I'm not ugly. Right. You are on the right track. If you aren't ugly, why are you on a diet? What's wrong with McDonald's? Do you know how happy you will be when you chuck down a bottle of Coke? What about braised pork in brown sauce? Chu Xiaoming failed to come up with a proper sentence. Su Yang tried to guide her towards the right direction. Do you know what they represent? They represent happiness. Think about it, are you happy when you eat them? She gulped and nodded repeatedly. He said louder, then, should you stop yourself from walking into the arms of happiness? Chu Xiaoming shook her head strongly and her hair swirled along with the motion. No, we as human beings climb to the top of the food chain through time and experience, but did we do it just because we want to be vegetarians, said Su Yang. No, said Chu Xiaoming. Louder. No. I will never be a vegetarian, she squealed. Su Yang clapped and said, you're right. To hell with dieting. Eat your meals and embrace happiness. While he was admonishing his lecturer, Chu Xia ran back sweating with the porridge. The jaw-dropping scene shocked her and she could not comprehend what just happened. Chapter 73. Another random mission. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Ahem. Su Yang tried to cover up the awkward scene by clearing his throat. He then said to Chu Xiaoming, have some porridge first. However, Su Yang's bluff was still in effect as Chu Xiaoming was still caught in the moment. She pouted her round cheeks and said loudly, I don't want to be a vegetarian. I want meat. **T, I think I might have gone too far with the hypnotizing. Did I add points to my bull **ting ability? He tapped Chu Xiaoming's shoulder and calmed her down. Even if you want to have meat, you must eat some porridge first. Chu Xiaoming looked at him with a silly cute expression. Really? He nodded seriously. Okay. After she had her porridge, the lecturer and student trio headed back to the lecture hall. When they reached the entrance of the hall, Chu Xiaoming finally regained her senses and realized that she had been fooled. She got grumpy and started to stomp her foot in her mind. My goodness. Chu Xiaoming. You are so stupid. How can you let your student trick you? It must be the diet. I haven't had rice for the past few days, so I must be lacking glucose in my brain. She glared at Su Yang. She knew he had bluffed her for her own good, but the insult of being lectured by her own student made her grumpy. Su Yang felt the burning gaze from Chu Xiaoming, so he glanced at her. What's wrong? Since he spoke to her first, she cleared her throat and feigned a serious look. Mr. Su, I suppose you aren't lying to me about passing the semester as well, are you? As well. Su Yang sharply captured the term. It seemed like his lecturer had noticed what happened, so he said, of course not. I'm giving my heart to learning English. He did not even learn a single alphabet in the past 2 weeks. Chu Xiaoming nodded and simply believed him. Just before Su Yang heaved a breath of relief, she said, then, I'll look forward to your score in the midterms next Tuesday. Su Yang was shocked. Wait, what? Midterms are next Tuesday. Chu Xiaoming looked at him. What's wrong? Surprised. He nodded dully. Chu Xia whispered into his ear, Miss Chu mentioned the midterms in the last class. He was speechless this time. Great, I have to thank myself for not paying attention in class. Chu Xiaoming continued to look at him with a delighted gaze. Mr. Su, do your best in your midterms. I have my eyes on your score. At that very moment, Su Yang's mind had a bunch of thoughts about revenge, like the story about Mr. Dongpa and the wolf. 1. She must have done this to get back to him for bluffing her. At the next moment, a beep sounded in his mind. New random mission. Score at least 59 marks in the midterms next Tuesday. What is the difference between 59 marks and passing the midterms? It's not funny at all. What else can I get? 59.5 marks. The system knows that my English is bad, yet it gives me a mission in English. I dare you to give me a mission about mathematics. I'll take it even if you ask me to score 100 in the test. However, the system could not hear Su Yang's grumbling, so it did not change. Su Yang felt defeated. Sigh. Passing English is harder than scoring 100 in mathematics. He sat down at the last row, and amid his ceaseless grumble, Monday's English class started. Maybe because of the bowl of life-saving porridge, Chu Xiaoming was a lot healthier and louder during the lecture. She continued her passionate English lecture in front of the hall. Even though the students tried their best to listen, they could not understand because their level in English was not as good as Chu Xiaoming. Needless to say, Chu Xiaoming's level of English and her knowledge was quite high, but her teaching of the language was nothing stellar. A great learner might not be a good teacher. A teacher was an occupation that required practice. It required one to master the knowledge at hand and split it down into digestible bits to the students so that they could learn better. This was the reason why a great teacher might not result in great students. Soon enough, the first session of English was over. The effect of the porridge might have faded because Chu Xiaoming suddenly felt weak during the break. Her stomach started to hurt again. While it was not as bad as before, it was still not comfortable. It was then a beep sounded in Su Yang's head. He was lying on the table and was at war with English. Su Yang curiously tapped the random mission. New random mission. Help your English lecturer to get rid of chronic gastritis, air. Su Yang looked towards the podium and saw Chu Xiaoming on the chair when her hands over her chest while her face looked a little pale. It seems like she's damaged her stomach from all the dieting. Girls nowadays wanted to be slim and slender, but they never realized that boys liked girls with a little meat. A girl that was too thin was never a boy's favorite because she would feel stiff when hugged. Su Yang sized Chu Xiaoming up. Her forehead was covered in sweat again. Even though she made him study English, he was not that heartless to watch her suffer. Fine. I'm really a kind guy. I'm not doing this because of the mission. Curing Chu Xiaoming was actually a piece of cake. When Su Yang received the mission, he thought of Sankei. Ever since that ginseng came to life from his point addition, it played dead in Gru's pot and did not even say a word throughout the day. It did not even greet Su Yang in the morning. Even little Huss, that naughty B****, would flatter him just so he could have a sniff of breakfast. Now would be the best time to put the ginseng to use. With that in mind, Su Yang looked around sleazily before he took his phone out. He tapped on it and typed a sentence to Dini. Dini, ask Sankei how much of his roots do I need to cure chronic gastritis. 2 seconds later, Dini replied. Sankei says 3 centimeters of its roots. Su Yang. Cut it for me and soak it in hot water. Put it on my table. I have a use for it. Okay. After replying to Su Yang, Dini pulled out a pair of scissors from the drawer of the tea table in the living room. She flew to Sankei and whispered, Sankei, bear with the pain. Master says he needed 3 centimeters of you. Sankei opened its eyes slowly and glanced at her dully. Just when she thought the ginseng was a cool and arrogant one, Sankei said, "Go easy on me." Dini was slightly stunned before laughter broke out from her. Sankei. Your cool and arrogant personality is ruined. Do you know that? Sankei looked at her without saying anything. Dini was smart enough to not continue the conversation because Su Yang was waiting. She raised the scissors and counted 3 roots at Sank's head. Chop. 3 roots were snipped off from Sank's head. After that, Dini flew away with the roots and put them into a cup of hot water. When the roots touched the hot water, they slowly dissolved and disappeared into the water in the blink of an eye. The transparent water then turned slightly yellow. Dini then put the cup of ginseng water on the table, waiting for Su Yang to scan it out of the virtual space. On the other hand, while Sankei was watching Dini flying around with her chores, its wrinkled face crumpled and a sentence spilled out softly, "It really hurts." 1. Mr. Dompa and the Wolf. The story is about Mr. Dompa showing kindness to a wolf but eventually got attacked by it. Mr. Dompa saved a wolf from a hunter, but the wolf tried to attack him after the hunter left. Moral of the story: don't be kind to the wrong people or your kindness will bite you back. Chapter 74. Miraculous Ginseng Water. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Yang looked at his phone and saw Dini preparing the cup of water on the table. He then stood up and left the lecture hall. He walked into another empty classroom and headed to the corner. With his phone out, he tapped on it and a window popped up. Take the item out. Yes/no, Su Yang tapped on yes. A green light came out from his phone camera and shone over the floor. A moment later, a steamy cup of water appeared. Su Yang picked the cup up for a closer look. The water inside was a little yellowish, but he could not smell anything from it. Whatever. Chu Xiaoming's dumb side won't notice it either. After he brought the cup of yellow water back to the lecture hall, Su Yang headed to the podium. Chu Xiaoming's hands were still grasping her chest and she looked uncomfortable. However, when she noticed Su Yang closing in, she put her hands away and looked at him. What's the problem, Mr. Su? Su Yang gave her the cup. Drink this. Chu Xiaoming instinctively accepted the cup. It was a little hot when she touched it. She peered inside and noticed that the water was slightly yellow, hence she asked out of curiosity, "What is this?" Water. Chu Xiaoming looked at the cup of water again. Indeed, the water was a little yellowish. A cup of yellow water. She looked at Su Yang suspiciously. Why is the water yellow? My cup is yellow, he said without even blinking. Chu Xiaoming was still dubious because a normal person would not simply accept a strange drink from someone else. Su Yang noticed her suspicion and helplessly said, "Do you think I'll poison you?" Chu Xiaoming nodded seriously this time. I want you to score high marks in the midterms, so I really suspect you are trying to poison me. What the is she delusional? Su Yang was speechless. Whatever. I don't even know how to explain myself. Not wanting to waste time with this silly woman, he said, "It's up to you whether to drink it or not. All I want to say is that your stomach will feel better after drinking it." Su Yang then headed back to his seat and buried himself in the English textbook. The midterms were next Tuesday, and for the sake of his mission, he had to burn the midnight oil. With the cup in her hand, Chu Xiaoming watched Su Yang go back to his seat. She was in a dilemma whether or not to drink the water. The lessons about safety that she learned since young told her that a girl should not simply accept a drink from someone else, especially from a man, and even more so when the water might have been tampered with. The cup of water Su Yang had given her looked strange, especially the color. She might be a little dumb, but she was not blind. The water was yellow, not the cup. However, They were still in the lecture hall and the second lecture was about to start. No matter how bold Su Yang was, he would not have poisoned her in public. Or would he? She saw Su Yang bury himself in the book and not even care about her. She glanced at the water in the cup again and her stomach started to sting her again. Arg. Whatever, I'll just drink it. Su Yang might look like a bad guy. He might do things like a bad guy, but at least, he's never harmed me before. With that in mind, Chu Xiaoming drained the cup of ginseng water to its last drop. With the water flowing down into her stomach, Chu Xiaoming felt a stream of warmth flowing into her stomach and easing the cramps. She felt a lot better. However, unlike normal warm water, while the warmth from the water faded swiftly, the warm energy lingered in her stomach. It felt really cozy and soothing. She felt so comfortable that she laid down on the table and shut her eyes. Her stomach had not felt this comfortable for days. After some time, the bell for the next lecture rang, but Chu Xiaoming was lying on the table and had somehow fallen asleep. The students, who came back for the lecture after the break, failed to find their lecturer at first glance, so they looked around and noticed Chu Xiaoming sleeping on the table. Several other students switched their gaze to Chu Xia, who was smart enough to be aware of the situation. She walked over to Chu Xiaoming, bent over, and tapped her shoulder. Ms. Chu, it's time for class. Chu Xiaoming was woken up by the whisper in her ears, but her mind was still muddled. Huh? What? Class is over. Chu Xia blinked awkwardly. No, Ms. Chu, it's time for class. Chu Xiaoming took a moment for her mind to restart and only then did she realize the situation. Her round face blushed as if she had put makeup on her cheeks. I'm sorry. I was too sleepy. She also thanked Chu Xia for waking her up. Chu Xia smiled brightly and her eyes curved up like crescent moons. It's okay, Ms. Chu. She then moved her slender legs around and headed back to her seat. Chu Xiaoming rubbed her eyes and stood up before apologizing to the class for falling asleep before she started the new session. During the second half of the lecture, she got a little carried away by the comfort in her stomach. She could not put the comfort she felt in words, but it was as if her stomach had been reborn. In recent years, while she might not have been on a constant diet, she would go on a diet once in a while. Needless to say, all her diets ended up in failure. At first, she would ask her little brother, Chu Xian, to supervise her meals and he was given the right to penalize her for 20 yuan whenever she ate snacks or drank soft drinks. It worked at first, but as the diet went on, Chu Xiaoming was almost broke and even owed her brother 600 yuan because of this. Therefore, she soon gave up on the tormenting plan and started a new round of dieting plans. The key to slim down was either dieting or exercising. Chu Xiaoming rotated between exercising and dieting, and after torturing herself for a few years, she managed to lose quite some weight, but it took a toll on her stomach. Her stomach would cramp more often and it was not a pleasant experience. Nevertheless, she only lost weight on paper, not in terms of looks. Her face was still round because of the baby fat, and no matter how hard she tried, she looked puffy and cute. No one would relate her image to the word slim. Every time before showering, she would look into the mirror and realize that other than a certain upper body part that remained big, her body had already slimmed down but at the cost of her own well-being, especially her poor stomach. Chu Xiaoming's silly mind could not even tell whether it was worth it or not. However, after drinking the cup of yellow water from Su Yang, her stomach felt a lot better. The dull pain no longer troubled her and she felt like she could devour 2 whole cows. If it was not for the class, she might have run out and devoured a cow alive. I'm so hungry, I want to eat that a lot. At the same time, Su Yang heard a beep in his head. Random mission completed. Random point +1, Su Yang glanced at Chu Xiaoming who was starting to mess up her lecture again, and giggled. He lowered his head and continued his study. Nothing can escape the great law of tastiness. 1. After the second lecture, Su Yang packed his things and wanted to head to the next class, but before he could step out of the lecture hall, Chu Xiaoming held him back. Mr. Su. Su Yang halted his steps and looked at her. What? Chu Xiaoming blushed and said, thank you. K. Su Yang nodded before he left. After he left the lecture hall, a faint smile curled upon his face. It does feel good to act cool sometimes. A busy day flew by in the blink of an eye and Su Yang dragged his exhausted body back home in the evening. Right after he stepped into his rented basement, he jumped into the virtual space as usual, but when he reached the villa, he received a notification on his WeChat. Chapter 75. Become a part of the family. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Yang called Dini over. She tacitly brought up his phone homepage in front of him. Su Yang checked the notification from WeChat and realized it was from Mr. Smart Guy, Li Runs. Li Runs said. I heard you created a Hani fan club. Even through the messaging app, Su Yang somehow painted the cold and emotionless face of Li Runs in his mind when he typed the message. He replied. I didn't create the group. It was Chu Xia, but due to various reasons, I became the president. Li Runs said. Not important. I want to join. Ha. Mr. Smart Guy wants in. Is he joining because of Han Yi? Or is it because of .me? The thought popped up in Su Yang's mind and he felt a little insecure. However, it was a good thing to have Li Runs in the fan group because he was quite respectable in his faculty. He was famous, in fact. He also had a certain reputation throughout the campus because he got into Shanghai University as the top student of his high school. It was said that with his results that got him first place in his high school, he could easily get into the renowned Tsinghua University, but since he was a local Shanghainese and Shanghai University agreed to a lot of his terms, he chose Shanghai University over the best. Su Yang was unsure whether the choice was worthwhile because he never had such opportunities. Therefore, after a quick thought, he succinctly replied. Sure. He planned to use Li Run's reputation and expand his fan club into the Faculty of Information. From the fan club, he would then select those who wanted part-time jobs to fill his shortage of manpower. Meanwhile, in another part of Su Yang's neighborhood, Chu Xiaoming was humming a melody while devouring a piece of Korean fried chicken in her teddy bear pajamas. She had ordered spicy, sour-flavored chicken and it was glazed with sauce. Since there was no one around, she abandoned her image and devoured the piece of chicken like a hungry wolf. Her mouth was painted red by the sauce and it made her look like a glutton with a big appetite. Amidst her happy munching, knocks came from her door. Surprised, Chu Xiaoming anxiously swallowed the chicken and asked, "Who is it?" The slightly lazy voice of a male replied, "Chu Xiaoming, it's me." The voice sounded like the combination of a lion and a tiger's roar, terrifying her like a frightened rabbit. She quickly tossed the fried chicken back into the bowl and wiped her mouth with a piece of tissue. She then grabbed the bowl and sprinted towards her bedroom like a mad lady. She wanted to hide the bowl of fried chicken in her drawer, but before she closed it, she hesitated. Grabbing a drumette, she shoved it into her mouth before she shut the drawer, and ran out of the bedroom. Everything was done within a single breath. She returned to the living room to check for any leftover residue, and while she chewed on the drumette, she cleaned the sauce on the table with the tablecloth. Lastly, she drank a mouthful of water and gargled her mouth before she opened the door. The tall and handsome young man in front of her door was her little brother, Chu Xian. Chu Xian arrived at Chu Xiaoming's door with 2 bags of groceries. He looked at his sister impatiently and asked, "What are you doing?" "I've been standing here for ages." She averted his questioning gaze and said, Nothing. I was having a nap." Grunting suspiciously, Chu Xian pushed Chu Xiaoming away and made his way into the house. He put all the groceries on the table and said, "Mom said you can't eat a lot during your diet, so she told me to bring some apples and banana." Chu Xian paused all of a sudden and started sniffing around. "What's that smell?" Chu Xiaoming nervously closed the door. She conveniently grabbed the air freshener at the porch and sprayed it beside Chu Xian. "Smell? What smell? There's no smell here. Maybe it's because I didn't open the windows." Chu Xian turned towards the windows in the living room. It was wide open and the breeze was blowing comfortably, causing the curtains to flutter. The atmosphere suddenly turned awkward and the two of them looked at the opened windows in silence. He looked askance at his sister. "Crazy woman. You are acting strangely." After he put the groceries down, he sat down on the sofa and reclined like a paralyzed man. He said in a relaxed tone, "Training is so tiring. Lying down is the best." Chu Xiaoming finally got the opportunity to counterattack. "All you do is lie down every day. Mom and Dad forbid you from lying down at home, yet you come to my place and lie down like a paralyzed person. You are as lazy as slime. Are you sure you are a sports student?" Chu Xian's eyes were half-opened when he looked at his sister. He turned his face away and did not reply. Just when he wanted to shut his eyes for a nap, a piece of paper under the tea table entered his sight and caught his attention. "Ha! What's this?" He sat up straight and grabbed the paper. When the piece of paper was picked up, Chu Xiaoming knew she had blown it because it was the receipt of the fried chicken she had ordered. She jumped over nervously and wanted to tear the evidence to pieces, but Chu Xian swiftly turned around and dodged her attack. He quickly went through the 10 lines of orders and then looked at his sister with a grin. He teased, "Look at you, Chu Xiaoming, having fried chicken, are we? You are so done. I'll tell Mom about this. Your diet plans are dead again." "No, you won't." Chu Xiaoming bared her fangs and claws like a desperate beast, determined to get the piece of receipt back, but Chu Xian raised it up high. They were brother and sister, but the difference in their height was heaven and earth apart. Chu Xian was 180 centimeters and Chu Xiaoming was only 160 centimeters. No matter how high she jumped, she could not get the piece of paper. The two of them fooled around for a bit before Chu Xian noticed something. He shot his sister a doubtful look. "Are you having spicy fried chicken? What about your stomach? Doesn't it hurt anymore?" The receipt clearly stated sour-spicy Korean fried chicken. Chu Xiaoming's family actually knew that she had damaged her stomach from all the irregular dieting, but they failed to talk her out of it, so the best they could do was advise her to take less oily food and consume more fruits. Chu Xiaoming was all serious when her brother mentioned it. She said, "My stomach actually hurt like hell this morning, but one of my students gave me a cup of water. After I drank it and took a nap, I felt a lot better. My stomach feels fine as well." Chu Xian did not believe what his sister said. "What? Do you think this is a movie? A cup of magical water and your stomach is cured. It must be your mind acting up." She furrowed her brows and pondered. "I thought about it too. It might have been my mind playing tricks on me, but my stomach really feels a lot better. I ate a lot during lunch too and I'm still hungry now. My stomach used to hurt whenever I overate." Chu Xian rubbed his chin and said, "Sounds miraculous enough, but can he cure sexual dysfunction?" Chu Xiaoming kicked her brother's shin. "Chu Xiaoming. Can you be a little more serious?" The moment he heard his sister call him by his real name, the relaxed expression on his face faded. "Chu Xian. I'm Chu Xian now. I've changed my name. Chu Xiaoming. Chu Xiaoming. Chu Xiaoming." Chu Xiaoming did not care about her brother's complaints and screamed his name repeatedly, which sparked another great war between them. After World War II ended, Chu Xian collapsed on the ground. He asked his sister from the sofa, "So, who is this magical student? Chu Xiaoming said without a second thought, even if I said his name, you wouldn't know who it is. His name is Su Yang. Su Yang. Chu Xian muttered the name and suddenly had a strange expression. Why wouldn't I know the name? This Su Yang guy is the one who lives in the same neighborhood as my sis and the guy my sis paid attention to. After the first meeting, Chu Xian asked around about Su Yang and actually grasped the situation clearly. Now, when his sister mentioned the name a second time, he looked at her with a ridiculing and meaningful gaze. I guess it's time for me to make acquaintance with this guy. Maybe he will become a part of the family. Su Yang did not know that Chu Xiaoming's little brother had his eye on him. Ever since he decided to use Han Yi's fan club members to expand his company's manpower, he became busy for the whole week. Chapter 76. Chu Xian the Flamboyant Flatterer. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Yang first moved all the fan club members who wanted a part-time job to a new group and started distributing jobs to them using his prestigious position as president. Since his company removed a lot of unnecessary procedures, compared to the part-time jobs from the university, the pay was higher. Without a second thought, the students looking for part-time jobs embraced Su Yang's company without a second thought. Su Yang also officially recruited the 10 team leaders as contracted employees of his company. Each of them was assigned a task as a team leader and they were responsible for bringing the other students to their part-time job venue and whatnot. The timetable of different courses and faculties varied, so after the students registered themselves with Su Yang, he would let Wang Dong pick the part-time jobs for them after confirmation. After the jobs were assigned, Su Yang would distribute details, including the list and arrangements, to the students, and then it would be up to the team leader. A week flew by in the blink of an eye. After a whole week of trial, Su Yang's team of part-timers finally took shape. Other than the 10 team leaders, he had 140 students who signed on as long-term part-timers. The students did 2.5 days of work per week on average. Some of them worked for 2 to 3 days while some only worked 1 day and some rested on alternate days. With each completed job, each student was able to create 30 yuan of profit for Su Yang, and after 5 days, the combined profit reached 10,500 yuan. Excluding Wang Dong's 10% commission, the net profit was 9,450 yuan. If this would continue, even if Su Yang did not expand his group of part-timers, he would be able to earn around 40,000 yuan in net profit per month. This was what a company was made for. A group of people creating value for a single person. If Su Yang did not accept the silver mission and was not ambitious, he just had to spend time and effort to make sure everything could operate smoothly and he could sit back and enjoy 40,000 every month. Of course, he had to at least make 180,000 per month because of the silver mission and he was still far from his goal. During the weekend, Su Yang operated his company remotely while teaching Tang Xiaomi mathematics. He easily got another 2 random points and also triggered random mission. Tutor Tang Xiaomi once, 4. Tang Xiaomi had become his first mini-boss from whom he could farm random points. At the end of the week, with 4 random points at hand and the beautiful admiration of his future, Su Yang visited the dreamland. On the morning of the second day, a new week started. When he reached the campus, Su Yang realized it was a lot livelier. He simply grabbed a wandering member of the fan club and asked what was happening. It seemed like after a whole month of preparation, the campus singing competition was finally going to start. Maybe because of Han Yi and Lin Jili's participation in this campus singing competition as judges, the 3 universities looked upon it highly. In this modern age in which attention conquered everything, an artist who could secure online traffic and a third-tier actress were enough to attract a ton of attention from 3 universities. Shanghai University's reputation skyrocketed in Baidu's search trend. The university then poured in more effort into advertising by calling its students to participate in the competition. Unfortunately, since there were no incentives, it could not attract as much attention. Most of the students just came for the show as spectators. When Su Yang reached the lecture hall, he habitually walked to the last row but realized another young man there. The young man wore a simple colored t-shirt that did not hide his fit physique. If the sun shone through the roof and bathed him in it, he would look like the male lead of a film about youth. Su Yang even noticed several other girls in the class turn around to peek at him and discuss in whispers. When the young man saw Su Yang, he took the initiative and greeted him, "Hi, Mr. President." Su Yang was caught off guard. "You are?" The young man said, "I'm Chu Xian, a member of Han Yi's fan club." "Oh, so he's another member of the fan club." Su Yang nodded and sat beside Chu Xian. While he took his textbook out, he asked, "Is there anything that I can help you with?" "Nothing in particular. I'm just here to check you out," said Chu Xian. Su Yang's hand froze in his bag and he started to lose his mind. Why do I keep running into gayish men recently? Can't they just tell me what they want? He quickly changed the topic. "Are you a student here?" Chu Xian was sizing Su Yang up from top to bottom. He then locked eyes with him. "Yeah. Which faculty do you think I am from?" Su Yang sized him up and said, "From the engineering faculty." "Civil engineering. Or mechanical engineering?" Chu Xian clapped his hands and said, "You are really awesome." "I'm from the faculty of sports." "Why would I be awesome if I didn't get it right?" Chu Xian then asked, "Then, do you know what I am studying?" Su Yang opened his book and tried to brush him away. "I don't know." "Soccer. Basketball." Chu Xian clapped again. "Awesome. I'm studying soccer." Su Yang glanced at him with a strange expression. "He's calling me awesome whether I get it right or not. That I bet he's missing a chord in his mind. He should just call himself Missing Chu Xian instead of Mr. Chu Xian." "You look brave enough," said Su Yang. Chu Xian smiled and said, "Yeah, I feel brave too, but I hope that I can join the national team and lead them back to the World Cup." He then added, "Oh right, Brother Su, do you follow the news about the World Cup?" Su Yang nodded nonchalantly as he continued reading his book. "I do, but I only follow and watch my favorite team." Chu Xian curiously asked, "Which team do you like?" "The national team, China," said Su Yang. Chu Xian was speechless. He awkwardly smiled and said, "Then, I don't think you have watched many matches." Su Yang flipped several pages in his book and nodded. "Yeah. The national team never lets me down. They never occupy my study time." Chu Xian had to give it to Su Yang for being a conversation terminator. No matter how much the sunny sports student flattered him, Su Yang did not even have the urge to continue the conversation. While Chu Xian was hesitating whether or not to continue talking, Chu Xiaoming came into the lecture hall. The moment he saw his sister, he lowered his head. He was there to spy on Su Yang without her knowledge, so he could not afford to be discovered. While Chu Xiaoming was settling down at the podium, Chu Xian quietly bent over and slipped out through the back door. Su Yang saw him sneak out of the lecture hall and he shook his head. Handsome but stupid. Too bad. He would never admit that he was jealous of Chu Xian's physique and sunny presence. Right after he sighed, Chu Xiaoming called his name from the podium, "Su Yang." Su Yang looked up. "Present." "What's the matter, Ms. Chu?" "The midterms are tomorrow. How's your revision going? Can we not talk about my weakness?" Su Yang had been studying for the English midterms whenever he was free in the past week, but he realized he was not getting any better. It was not about working hard. It was about talent, and if he let this go on, he would 100% fail the subject. It was then that he suddenly thought of the 4 random points he had. Maybe it was time for him to put them to good use. Chapter 77. Little Huss is going out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. However, the random points would only result in random results. No one could guarantee the usefulness which troubled Su Yang. Chu Xiaoming giggled when she saw Su Yang's troubled expression. Okay then, Mr. Su, do your best. After she finished teasing Su Yang, Chu Xiaoming curled her lips into a delightful smile and started the lecture. Unlike her, Su Yang was not happy. He had less than 24 hours to the midterms, and no matter how hard he revised, he could not absorb anything at all. With no options left, Su Yang went to Chu Xia for help after class. Chu Xia was drawing on her English workbook quite skillfully. She was sketching a young man with sharp brows and solid features. It even looked a little like Su Yang. However, Su Yang believed he was overthinking. Boys were all narcissists. A tiny move from a girl and the boy would suspect that the girl liked him. What am I thinking? Chu Xia drew a face with eyes, a nose, a mouth, and I think it's me. The drawing is a little handsome, but I'm not the only handsome guy around. Therefore, without being too concerned, Su Yang tapped her shoulder. Chu Xia, what's up? Chu Xia looked at him with a sweet smile. Her fair cheeks looked as pleasant as a painting. I'm drawing. What do you think? Does it look like you? Oh my, is it really me? But shouldn't a common girl be frightened when the guy she likes noticed her drawing of him? Chu Xia is really not a common girl. Chu Xia noticed that he was spacing out, so she closed her book and asked with a smile, "What's the matter, Mr. President?" Su Yang signaled her to continue being seated and then he sat down beside her. He said softly, "I'm actually hoping for some news about the midterms tomorrow. I'm wondering if you have anything useful." "Oh, are you trying to cheat?" "No, I'm not. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just trying to ask for tips or some highlights. You know, I barely listen to English lectures," Su Yang said after a little pause. Chu Xia put her book into Su Yang's hands. "Here. This is what you need. The whole book." He was shocked. Chu Xia moved closer to him and whispered, "Our Ms. Chu didn't mention anything about the midterms, so no one knows what she will put in the papers. I suppose you already know how strange our faculty lecturers are, so that you know what I mean." She tapped his shoulder and curved her eyes into two crescent moons. "Good luck." Su Yang looked defeated. He wanted to leave, but Chu Xia held him back and said, "I have something for you. Do you want to hear it?" His eyes shone brightly. "Yes. Tell me. I heard most of the questions will be multiple choice this time, and if you are really having trouble with your studies, I'd suggest getting a protection charm. I've heard of an efficacious temple in Shanghai. Do you want me to bring you there?" "Thank you very much." Su Yang chuckled helplessly and walked away. She pouted and tapped her foot repeatedly. "You idiot." At the end of the day, Su Yang was still so bothered by the midterms that he did not even have the mood to settle his company matters. He felt like he was possessed by English. It was just a small midterm exam and the mission was just a random mission without any penalty. Even if he failed the midterms and the mission, what could happen? Nevertheless, Su Yang did not want to be lazy or compromise the results because he believed he would be running away from the problem. Maybe it was just a random mission, so nothing would happen even if he failed it, but what about the bronze mission regarding his English semester test? Would he just fail it too? If he allowed this to happen, it might be fine even if he did not finish the bronze mission because there were no penalties. What if the system assigned him a silver mission with a penalty and the mission was about passing the English test? What would he do then? This would be the entrance to the abyss, and if he jumped in, he would never climb back up. He could not just simply let the mission fail because it was not important. Once a man became lazy, problems would pop up one after another. With that in mind, Su Yang made up his mind to not escape from the problem. He would fight to the last moment and do his best, but how? Su Yang uncontrollably landed his gaze on the brick on his table back in his room at the villa. If the lucky bricks effect could be used, he might not feel this bothered. Since Chu Xia said the midterms were mostly multiple-choice questions, he might be able to finish the test in half an hour. Unfortunately, the lucky brick was still on cooldown, so he must wait for another 2 weeks to use it, hence it was not viable. After considering all his options, Su Yang decided to take his best shot in the point. Adding, "I'll add points to change my life." With that in mind, Su Yang called Dini, "Where's Little Hus?" Dini's obedient voice came through, "Master, Little Hus is swimming in the pool." That dog's ***T, he really knows how to enjoy himself. I've moved into the villa for some time now and I haven't even touched the swimming pool. How dare he swim before I do? Su Yang headed to the swimming pool and saw Little Hus swimming, or to be more precise, floating. The big white bolster with the picture of a husky drifted on the swimming pool. All 4 of his edges would waddle to change directions. The eyes of the husky on the bolster were shut and he was enjoying the moment. Gru and Sankei were also around. Gru was bigger than its usual self and it soaked its lower body in the water. Some of its branches curled up around the pool, and even though it did not have a face, it looked like it was enjoying itself. Sankei was in the pot beside Gru with his cool, arrogant appearance, but he was still as ugly as a wrinkled carrot. Su Yang really wanted to take a video of the situation and caption it. "What your pets do when you are not around." He believed the little monsters in his house would surely be popular overnight, but first, he would certainly be captured by some secret government department and get cut into pieces for research purposes. "Wait, if all 3 of them are here, where's Dini?" Su Yang called her again, "Dini, where are you? Why aren't you joining them in the swimming pool?" A moment later, Dini's voice echoed in the villa, "Master, I'm having a milk bath." Su Yang dared not picture the scene as he was afraid that he might have a nosebleed. He then walked to the pool and splashed some water at Little Hus. "Hus, Hus, wake up." The husky head on the bolster shuddered and his eyes opened. The husky then shook the water off his body and looked at Su Yang with a pleasant gaze. "Oh, Su Yang, it's you. What's up?" Su Yang took his shoes off and soaked his feet in the water. The water was cool and it was quite comfortable during early summer. "I want to ask if you can sniff a particular chance or opportunity out." The 4 edges of the bolster nimbly waddled around so that Little Hus could look at Su Yang properly. "What do you mean? I don't get it." Su Yang further simplified his thoughts. "I want to pass my midterms and semester. Can you sniff any chances or opportunities related to this aspect?" Little Hus looked like he was in heavy thought. "I think that it's possible." Su Yang could not trust the husky bolster based on his expression and answer, so he said, "Then, help me sniff around and tell me what else in the villa can help me pass the tests." Little Hus continued floating on the water and said lazily, "I sniffed everything in the villa that day and the faucet and the carrot are all I could get." "Then, what should I do now?" Little Hus then widened his eyes at Su Yang. The husky's mouth widened into a malicious grin. "Why don't we go out and search?" Chapter 78. Dealing with Little Hus. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Su Yang had a bad feeling when he saw Little Hus' reaction. "No, I'll buy things back for you to sniff out instead." Little Hus did not look too concerned as he answered, "Then, it might take who knows how long to sniff something out." He even dug his nose using one of his edges. "Damn it. I'm being blackmailed by my dog, my bolster." Fortunately, when Little Hus saw Su Yang gnashing his teeth, he knew he should not and must not go too far with his request, so he said, "Su Yang, look. People walk their dogs almost every day, but ever since I've followed you, I've been stuck in the house. My fur is growing long." "It's normal for a dog's fur to grow," said Su Yang. "Well, at least, I still could look through the window when you put me in the basement, but now, I'm stuck in this virtual space and there's not even a window here, Little Hus complained. There are windows here. They just can't be opened, said Su-Yang. So, I think you should take me out for a walk. I'm not asking for too much, just half an hour. What do you say? Little Hus was looking forward to his answer. Whenever Su-Yang pictured the scene whereby he walked a bolster while others walked their dogs, his head hurt. The scene would be awesome, and if the husky picture on the bolster moved around like an animated picture and sized up his surroundings, it would surely go out of control. Su-Yang rubbed his temples to ease the swelling. But you are a bolster, not a real dog. What are you talking about? I'm a dog, said Little Hus. Su-Yang gave up. He wanted Little Hus to help him after all, so he compromised. I'll carry you instead and we can walk around the neighborhood for a bit. Little Hus shook his head. No. I want to walk on my own. Su-Yang almost lost his mind when he heard the answer. A bolster walking around the neighborhood in the middle of the night. How frightening would it be? If people found out about Little Hus, his name would be all over the headlines. Su-Yang rejected, keep dreaming. Little Hus casually closed his eyes. Then, you can kiss your chances and opportunities goodbye. Without saying anything, Su-Yang walked away. After Su-Yang left, Little Hus slowly opened his eyes. Huh? Did Su-Yang really leave? Is he mad at me? Little Hus squinted his eyes and pondered the situation. What if the negotiation goes south? What if Su-Yang makes me clean the floor again? Should I encourage the silly Dini to buy a cleaning robot? I can just lie down on it and pretend to clean. The dumb Su-Yang won't even notice. Little Hus grinned sinisterly at the thought of toying with Dini and Su-Yang in his paws. Who said that a dog could not be smart? He was the smartest dog around. While he was dreaming about the future, Su-Yang came back. Little Hus looked like he had already won the war. He looked at Su-Yang confidently and said, "Oh, what's wrong? Do you regret what you just said? Let me tell you something. I'm raising the terms. I want to play outside for an hour." Su-Yang smiled thinly. He brought a net and tossed it over Little Hus. After he caught Little Hus, he dragged the husky bolster up from the pool. Inside the net, Little Hus got nervous. What are you doing? What are you doing? Su-Yang did not care about the husky's squealing. He grabbed the bolster into the bathroom and tossed it into the washing machine. I'm walking you right now, but in circles. Come on, let's walk. Su-Yang then shut the hatch and turned on the washing machine. The washing machine started to spin. As Little Hus also started to spin along with the motion, his tiny edges tapped the hatch nervously and screamed, Su-Yang. Su-Yang. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Let me go. Su-Yang grinned. Come on, didn't you say you want an hour? I'll wait for you. He set the timer on the washing machine for an hour before he went out for dinner. An hour later, Su-Yang came back to the bathroom and saw Little Hus passed out in the washing machine. He knocked on the hatch. Hello there. How was it? Fun. Stars were spinning above Little Hus' head and he could barely speak in a proper manner. Not fun. Su-Yang raised his volume. Not fun. I guess the spinning wasn't enough. I'll add more time for you. Little Hus widened his eyes immediately and pleaded, No. No. No, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Su-Yang. Was it fun? Yes, it was fun. Little Hus nodded repeatedly. If it was fun, why not go for another spin, teased Su-Yang. Little Hus almost broke down in tears. Okay. Okay. I was wrong. I will never do it again. Su-Yang smiled thinly. What did you do wrong? The question struck Little Huss' soul like a bolt of lightning. I shouldn't ask you to bring me out for a walk. Wrong, said Su Yang. Little Huss was slightly confused. I shouldn't negotiate the terms. Wrong. Then, what did I do wrong? You shouldn't take advantage of the situation and blackmail me. Su Yang said in an even stricter tone. Little Huss lowered his head in guilt. You want to go out and play, I get it. You want to negotiate the terms with me, I can accept it too. We live in a fair place, but you can't just blackmail me because I want your help with something. Are we enemies? Su Yang activated his trash talk mode and became indomitable in every way. Even the naughty B***starred Little Huss was defeated and brainwashed by him. The husky's head hung even lower as Su Yang lectured continued. The lecturing went on for a full 20 minutes. After Su Yang made sure that Little Huss realized his mistakes, he released the bolster from the washing machine. As Little Huss shook himself dry after he came out, Su Yang looked at the bolster and said, Since you want to go out for a walk, I'll take you out for a while. However, you must promise me something first. You cannot show any expression and mustn't do anything strange. You cannot simply move your body as well. Just become a normal bolster. If you break the promise, I'll never bring you out anymore. Little Huss looked at Su Yang in surprise. He did not expect to lose the war and still get the chance to go out. His heart contained nothing but delight at the moment. He nodded repeatedly and said, Sure. 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 Su Yang rapped his head and said, Dry yourself. We'll leave when you are done. He then went out of the bathroom. After he came out, he smiled pleasantly. A slap in the face before giving him a reward. The tactic has been useful since ancient times. Can't the lesson passed down by our ancestors even deal with a husky, a bolster? Ha ha ha, it's more than enough. A while later, Little Huss obediently hopped out from the bathroom. Su Yang, let's go. Su Yang touched the bolster to make sure it was dry. He then carried Little Huss in his arms and reminded him one last time, remember, don't you talk or show face in front of people. Do you hear me? Little Huss nodded repeatedly. Don't worry. Take it easy. Since he promised to behave, Su Yang brought the bolster back to the real world. After they came out of the basement, Su Yang thought about where to go. He decided to visit the Upless convenience store near his neighborhood first. It was the closest convenience store and they were quite well equipped with products, so there were more choices to choose from. If Little Huss could not sniff anything there, Su Yang would have to go to the supermarket. Let's hope I can get what I want in Upless. Chapter 79. Su Yang. Have mercy. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Little Huss was a lot more energetic when they were outside. He would peer around when there was no one around and he had never looked so excited before. Su Yang realized it was Little Huss' first outing. It seemed like other than Dini, Gru and Sankei had never stepped out of the house either. These little monsters had been either staying in his rented basement or his virtual space. Dini was an exception because she was the phone itself, so she had the opportunity to see this beautiful world with Su Yang. Maybe I should bring everyone out for an outing when I have the time. Su Yang and Little Huss soon arrived at Upless convenience store. The store assistant was the one who had served Chu Xia that day. Convenient much. Su Yang carried Little Huss inside and started browsing the racks. He whispered to the bolster, Is there anything that can help me with my tests? When Little Huss remained quiet, Su Yang looked at the husky on the bolster. Little Huss' eyes gleamed and his mouth was wide open. Even his tongue was sticking out. He was muttering, Chocolata. Chocolata. Chocolate. I guess a dog can never change its habit of trying chocolate. Little Huss wanted to have chocolate the first day he came to this world and he hasn't forgotten it yet. Su Yang tapped the husky's head. Chances. Chances. The husky glanced at him while drooling. Chocolate, chocolate. Su Yang was speechless. He really did not want to continue the topic about chocolate being poisonous to a dog or that a bolster could not even eat chocolate. Therefore, he simply grabbed one small piece and said, "Now, do your job." Little Huss' eyes were glued to the chocolate in Su Yang's hand. He stuck his tongue out and licked the saliva away from his long muzzle. Okay. Little Huss then did put his specialty on full display by sniffing around. Su Yang carefully blocked the surveillance camera from capturing Little Huss' suspicious movements. He would ask occasionally, "How is it?" Little Huss whispered, "I picked up a faint smell, but I can't tell where yet. I need to get closer." Closer. Su Yang had to move closer to the racks displaying the products. Because he really looked like a thief, his suspicious movement attracted the store assistant's attention. The store assistant had his eyes on Su Yang and the suspicion on his face stated it all. A young man carrying a wild bolster into a convenience store at night was strange enough. He even wandered around a few times and went closer to the racks. If he was not a thief, he must be a crazy person. Su Yang had to pretend like nothing happened and continued browsing while telling Little Huss to hurry up. Finally, after his third round in the convenience store, Little Huss said in surprise, "I got it." Su Yang pulled the bolster closer. "Where?" Little Huss tried his best to point in front. Su Yang looked towards where the husky's nose was pointing. It was a box of 2B pencils. Pencils. Su Yang picked it up and asked, "This one?" The husky on the bolster nodded. "Which one?" Little Huss pointed to a particular pencil. Su Yang took the pencil out and swiftly pushed Little Huss' head away so that he could put the piece of chocolate back. He ran to the cashier and paid for the pencil. After they got out of the convenience store, Little Huss finally realized what happened. He screamed, "Su Yang! Have mercy!" His scream was definitely louder than a whisper, so it attracted the gaze of the passers-by right away. However, when the passers-by saw Su Yang was alone, they assumed that he was on the phone and they walked away with a shake of their heads. Su Yang shamelessly said, "You can't eat the chocolate anyway, so it will be a waste if I bought it. I can eat it. You are a dog. You will die if you eat chocolate. I can just keep it." Su Yang knocked Little Huss' head. "Come on. You will only waste it. Good boy." Little Huss wanted to argue, but Su Yang quickly threatened him, "If you make any more noise, I won't bring you out anymore." Little Huss shot him the husky death stare and shut up. Judging from the vicious glare, Little Huss was extremely unhappy. Nevertheless, Su Yang was not bothered. The little B*****'s arrogance would skyrocket if he compromised, so he planned to let the husky bolster be for now and buy another piece of chocolate a few days later to calm him down. As for why Su Yang did not buy the one from Uplay, it was because Uplay only sold imported chocolate and a piece of chocolate cost 30 yuan. It was expensive and Little Huss could not even eat it. When they reached home and went back into the virtual space, Little Huss angrily jumped out of Su Yang's arms and hopped away. Ever since Little Huss got used to the villa, he went out of control and played around like a child. He even built himself several dens around the villa. He said that since a rabbit had 3 dens, a dog should have more dens than a rabbit. Su Yang did not know what a dog had to do with the 3 dens of a rabbit and he dared not ask either because if Little Huss got angry, the B**** might even bite his master. After being tricked with the chocolate, Little Huss must be extremely mad at Su Yang, so he must have hidden in one of his dog dens. Thankfully, Su Yang had never heard from Dini that the little B** wanted to tear the place down or do anything unreasonable, so he just let the husky bolster have his way. After Little Huss hopped away, Su Yang took the pencil out and carefully checked it. It was the simplest 2B pencil there was and it did not look special at all. Can it turn into something that can help me in the tests? Right before Su Yang started the system, Dini flew down from the 2nd floor. She stretched her body and yawned. Master, good evening. Deanie was dressed in pink pajamas with lace. She should have looked sexy, but when she wore it, she looked cute instead. Su-young asked, how's your bath? Deanie moved her slender and fair legs to Su-young, curled her hands around his arm, and leaned on his shoulder. It's comfortable, master. I want to have a red wine bath next time. Just kill me. I almost threw up when I drank the milk. If I drink 500 milliliters of red wine in one go, I might have to swallow Sankei whole to stay alive. He cleared his throat and said, what about a beer bath? Deanie widened her googly eyes and blinked innocently. Beer stinks. Su-young tried to brainwash her by saying, no way. Red wine is alcohol and so is beer. They are the same in essence. But red wine keeps you in good health, she said in a skeptical tone. So does a can of beer. Look, there are a lot of dishes that use beer and red wine and they all taste as delicious, right? So, bathing in beer and red wine is the same. There's not a bit of difference. While Su-young was trying to deceive Deanie, Little Huss' scream came from an unknown corner and echoed throughout the villa, Su-young. Have mercy. Su-young was speechless. You little bee asterisk starred. I guess I really need to teach you a lesson. There goes your chocolate. After he misled Deanie, Su-young picked up the pencil and opened the system. A translucent, plus, sign appeared at the upper right of the pencil. Su-young tapped on it and the pencil shone. A point had been added. Chapter 80. Special Item. 0 score 2B pencil. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Unlike the earth-shattering scene during Sank's Point. Edition or the drastic change of appearance like the other two special items, the 2B pencil did not change at all even after adding a point to it. Su-young shook it, but it did not respond. Did the Point. Edition fail? The system window didn't even pop up. Did Little Huss lie to me? Is this pencil trash? Am I actually the 2B one? However, when Su-young recalled the eagerness on Little Huss' face back in the convenience store, he was still willing to believe the husky had really been trying to do something good back then. What on earth happened then? Is the system dying soon? Why the results are always delayed? Just when Su-young started to grumble, the window finally popped up from the pencil. 2B pencil plus 1. Acquired special ability. Appraise. Yes/no, only an idiot would not appraise the pencil, so Su-young chose yes without a second thought. The window of the 2B pencil changed drastically and its name changed into Ace 2B pencil, exam use. When Su-young saw the change in name, he heaved a breath of relief. The pencil clearly stated it was used for exams and he could finally escape his certain death during the midterms tomorrow. He might even pass the test at the end of the semester. However, when Su-young moved down to the pencil's description, he was stunned. Ace 2B pencil, exam use, ability. The answers written down with this pencil will be 100% wrong. Remark 1. An ace can be someone who answers all correctly or someone who answers all wrongly. Remark 2. Congratulations. You have avoided all the correct answers. Remark 3. Your mother will never have to worry about your results anymore because it's always 0. Su-young almost threw the pencil out. What the F asterisk asterisk asterisk. This is bullsh asterisk T. This is total bullsh asterisk T. I know avoiding all the correct answers is a talent, but I do not want it. He slammed the pencil on the table and felt extremely helpless. His mood had just gone through a roller coaster ride and he could not cope with the drastic difference. There was a saying on the internet that went, you will never know what is the color of the next MN. I know. It's SH asterisk T color. Su-young headed to the bathroom and washed his face. He had just experienced a real-life tragedy. After he came back to the living room, he held the pencil that he had almost thrown away in his hand. He felt helpless like a stupid idiot now. He simply grabbed a mock English test paper and started to write on it with the pencil. Indeed, Su-young had really studied hard for the English midterms during the weekend. Most of the questions on the mock were multiple-choice questions and he circled all the answers in less than 2 minutes. He filled every question up, so not a single one was left blank. He then took the answer sheet out and checked the answers. The first question. Wrong. The second question. Wrong. The third question. Still wrong. Every single question was wrong. Other than the comprehension and essay part, which he left blank, all the questions were wrong and he just scored a 0 in this mock test. This pencil really strays from all the correct answers, sigh. Su-young sighed. He had a feeling that he would be even sadder tomorrow morning. He tossed the test paper on the table and slouched on the couch. Then, he started to zone out as despair drowned him. All of a sudden, a bolt of lightning flashed across his mind and lit the light bulb above his head. Holy sh*t. Am I stupid or what? If the pencil can score 0, why can't I score 100? Su-young bolted up. He picked up the pencil and redid the test. After testing it out for more than 10 minutes, he grinned. Ha 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 ha. I am such a genius. On the morning of the second day, the Tuesday sun was bright and the breeze was comfortable. It was a good day for the midterms. Su-young brought his bag and the 2B pencil to the campus. Maybe because of the lifted burden and the overflowing confidence, his mood was over the moon. He even greeted the fan club members passionately when they greeted him. His unusual behavior sparked discussion among the members because they were used to his colder side. What is wrong with the president? I don't know. Maybe he is in love. No way. With who? I don't know. When he reached the lecture hall, Su-young greeted Chu-hsia passionately, "Mornin', Chu-hsia." Chu-hsia looked at him with a surprised gaze. Usually, she was the one who would greet Su-young, not the other way around. What caused the sun to rise from the west today? She replied with a bright smile as if she was the sun in the sky, "Morning, Mr. President." After greeting each other, Su-young headed to the last row of the lecture hall with all smiles. Chu-hsia turned around and glanced at him. Other than the silly giggles on his face, she did not spot anything strange. On quite the contrary, the longer she looked at Su-young, the more she realized that she was infected by his smile. Her lips started to curl uncontrollably and she eventually blushed. Chu-hsia. What is wrong with you? Don't smile. Don't you smile. Nonetheless, a beautiful smile appeared on her like a blooming flower. Smiles were indeed infectious. Soon enough, the class started. Chu Xiaoming called Chu-hsia over and gave her the test papers. Chu-hsia walked to the podium and whispered to Chu Xiaoming. No one knew what she said, but Chu Xiaoming smiled. She also whispered back to Chu-hsia with a bright smile. When the two beautiful ladies stood together, the lecture hall suddenly felt like a garden filled with roses and peonies, contending for the title of the best-looking flower. Even the lecture hall started to smell lovely. Surprised, Su-young glanced at the two ladies. Since when were they so close? Why didn't I hear anything about it? I guess all female friendships start without a solid reason. The ladies spoke for about a minute before they parted ways with smiles on their faces. Chu-hsia distributed the test papers to the class. When she got to Su-young's place, she stood beside him and whispered, "How's your revision?" Su-young answered confidently, "A.OK." Chu-hsia smiled and her eyes curled up like crescent moons, "I'll wait for your good news then." She then walked off and continued distributing the test papers. After Chu Xiaoming set up the radio for the comprehension part, she walked around the class to check on the students. Similar to Chu Xia, she stopped beside Su Yang and asked, "Mr. Su Yang, how are you doing? Are you confident enough?" Su Yang rolled his eyes white and said, "I'm confident that I'll score 0. Chu Xiaoming smiled. Scoring 0 is also a talent. Be careful not to circle the correct answer. After that, she wanted to walk away, but before she could take the first step, she stepped back and bent over. She moved closer to Su Yang and whispered, "If you fail, you won't have any excuse to reject my tuition class anymore." Delighted, she stood straight and walked away with her chest up as if she was a proud hen. Nonetheless, Chu Xiaoming really had a great body. When she bent over beside Su Yang, her chest bounced and it almost made Su Yang's eyes pop out of his head. Su Yang stared at Chu Xiaoming's back and pouted. "Don't you worry. I'll surely pass this test. I'll never attend your tuition class."